Welcome to the 3D printing tools for Blender. I'm going to explain all the tools inside of Blender 2.9 as fast as I can. Let's get started. By the end of this lesson, you're going to do the 5 extrude tools, inset tool dice. You're going to learn how to bevel with the bevel box, make a key with the loop cut tool, offset loop cut with some weights, make a knife with the knife tool, slice up designs with the bisect tool. You can make custom mask with the polybuild tool, spin some screwdrivers with the spin tool, and some pipes with the spin tool. You're going to make textures around these screws and bolts, and with the smooth tool, we're going to make a trowel. You're going to make some sandpaper with the randomize tool, and you can also make your designs fuzzy. To sign up, go ahead and click the link below or enroll over at ptt.live to start learning how to use all the tools inside Blender today. First off, note we are using 2.9 alpha, which is now in beta. Yip, hooray! Today we're going to draw some primitives with the add cube, and it's going to look like this, where it can kind of like draw off of a plane, which is really cool. But for right now, it's pretty basic, and you can just draw primitives up or down, and then when you let go of your mouse, it will just create the object. Pretty cool. And you can also do it from the center, so wherever you grab start the draw from the center, it will create it there, and then the origin point will be in the center of the object. You can also do that for any other of the primitives. You can also do it in the Y orientation, so if we wanted to put some spikes out of Suzanne's eyes just like that, we can also do it from the center, where it's the origin point will be right in the center of the object. We can also do it from the X, and that will make some little Frankenstein spikes sticking out of Suzanne here. So now we got Suzanne Frankenstein, and you can also do it from the 3D cursor plane. And so that is going to look at where the 3D cursor is and draw the primitive on that plane no matter what. So say if I move my 3D cursor and draw the plane way over here, it's still going to be on that plane. Or if I put it on top of her head and start drawing all kinds of little cubes, then it's still going to be on top of her head. There's also 3D view, which I don't really know how to work. So if anyone can let me know in the comments. So in order to go over and kind of get you familiar with all the different types of extrude tools, I made this little cube that will hopefully help you understand the differences between all the extrusions. First up is extrude region. You can hit E on your keyboard or just use the extrude tool, but make sure you don't extrude on top of another face. And if you do, you can just scale it down with S and then hit E to also extrude in. Very cool. Let's move on to the next one. Number 2, extrude along normals, which does exactly that. If you pull out some normals with your extrusion normal tool, it looks very similar to the extrusion tool. But if we select more than one and click extrude with the extrude along normals tool, it makes a cool rim. You can also scale it down, select multiple faces, and extrude them all together. Let's go ahead and jump into the next extrude tool, which is kind of similar but different. He is the extrude individual, and he looks like the normal extrude tool, but little did you know, if you select some faces like this one and extrude, it will actually extrude along individual faces. That's why he's called the individual extrude, because he will extrude things individually. Pretty cool. You can also select multiples, just like we did before, and extrude inward or outward, making really cool accentuations to your geometry. And I really like this one. You can also scale along individual origins to make really funky designs really quickly. So this one, I just did the outer edges, and then I took the insides of these faces and extruded individual, and they clashed up against each other, which is what you do not want. But luckily, if you scale individual, you can bring them down and make this cool little spaceship opening, or I don't know what this is, but I like it. And number 4 is extrude manifold, which is only available in Blender 2.9 alpha, but it's amazing. So look, if I extrude, it doesn't extrude a new piece of geometry. What is going on here? I don't know. Let's keep investigating. So not only can you just extrude geometry very strangely, but if you extrude out again, nothing happens. Isn't that amazing? Just kidding. If you invert it, see these little black lines? When you let go, Blender will actually delete those for you and make it manifold. Hallelujah. Not only that, say if you change your mind and you want to extrude that face back out again, looky there, it will actually weld these little edges back together. Watch in the corners here. And when I let go, bloop, it'll just melt it together. That is incredible. So I'm just going to extrude these out normally with E, and let's take these and extrude manifold. Bloop. get that to go away. Maybe pull this one out, just like a normal extrude, but extrude manifold. So nothing too fancy here. But if I grab the inner face here on this kind of inside, notice it will push that geometry all the way in and make some really cool. See how the little black triangle goes and then it goes away? You can extrude up, you can extrude down, you can create new faces and it melts it together. That is amazing. And then what's even cooler is you can take another piece that you just made, bring that on down, and it will melt it to the face against it. What? That is insane. And you really have to just play with this tool to really understand the power. Like this is a normal extrude, right? But watch this. Boom. Grab this guy, slide him on out. Now I've got this funky, odd-shaped hole. I can pull that piece out. It's just it doesn't really click until you play around with it. So I strongly recommend just getting inside Blender 2.9 Alpha and just playing with this tool because it is going to change the game, I think. It's very fun, especially for 3D print designers. Just making odd, weird shapes that just melt together makes just designing a lot more fun, I think. And the last one, extrude to cursor. He's a wild animal. You can click and just kind of make very odd shapes very quickly, but don't invert the geometry. Please, people, if you undo something like this, just undo it. You've totally messed it up. But a simple way to do it, what I like to do is just click and it will extrude to your cursor. And then what I'll do is usually just scale it down just a little bit and then make another extrusion. So it's just kind of following the shape or the path of your cursor. And it will even change the previous geometry to kind of make the best shape. It's kind of trying to think for you, which is great because sometimes I don't know what I'm trying to do. So, now we made like this little witch's hat and now I'm going to bring it into Prusa Slicer. I've been playing with Prusa Slicer and I'm really starting to fall in love with it. So, just check out your settings, make sure it's manifold. Yes, it is. And let's slice it on up and get it ready for 3D printing. And there we go. We've got a nice little sliced G-code file there with, I'm not even going to use supports, I'm going to live dangerously. So let's export it and send it to the 3D printer. And this is some PET G. So it's a little stringy. I need to work on my retractions, but looks pretty cool. And this thing 3D printed with no refs, no supports. I highly encourage you to do the same. Get in there, play with the extrude tools. It's a ton of fun. Today, we're going to be making some dice with the inset tool. So first, go into Blender, make a mesh cube, and size it up to 19 millimeters. Add a bevel. That looks pretty good. Subdivide it, then it's inset it with I. You can also hold control and do some depthage, but let's use the tool instead. Select the face, do the little inset just a little bit, then you can type in the thickness. Wow, do it again. Then you can do the offset and negative. There you go, you've got some depth. Hold shift to select multiple faces, and then you can do it all on each side like that. But with this one, it's going to be a little different. You got to hit individual, and there you go. Shift click the rest of them and inset, and boom, you've got a dice. If you want to add more details to your cube, you can go to my website where I teach you every single tool for 3D print. Slice it up, 3D print it, and roll your dice. Let's make a bevel box. To make a bevel box, all you got to do is make a cube, take your bevel tool and bevel the edges, add some segments, and there you go. You can even invert it. Wow. Then you can just bevel the whole thing. Take the sides, extrude them in, and then just bevel those. You can even change the way the edges look. And then take the tops, bring them up, and you can do really cool things. Take away the corners, bring them back, bevel it down, and add custom profiles. This is where it gets amazing and cool. Look, if I wiggle this line, you can do insane bevels. You can even grab the little points and do even crazier stuff, or use the custom presets to make like crown molding and flip-flop them, or, all kinds of different stuff. Stair steps even. You can extrude these and then just kind of play around with all the different types of bevels. Beveling is fun. Beveling is your friend. Beveling is going to change your life. So let's check it for 3D printing. Looks good to me. Let's export it, send it to a slicer, and print that thing. Yippity-doo-dah, yippity-day. Let's 3D print a key. First thing, bring in a reference image. Then bring in a plane. And then we're going to scale it down so it's about the same size. Loop cut the crap out of it. And then just select some of those points and then just fit the points all around the key. Extrude it up a little bit. Then we're going to take another cube, squeeze it down, and then shrink it and make it about the same size as this little cutout. But then we only want to go halfway through the key, just like that. Then we're going to loop cut that and then move the points to fit that. Do the same thing on the other one, just like this. And then we're going to subtract it with the bool tool. Bang, diddly dang. Boom, do this one too. But we're not done. It looks pretty good. But let's add a keyhole. So we're going to add a cylinder, about the same size as that hole there. Subtract it, look at there. Now we've got a key, bring it into a slicer, looks pretty good, and print that thing. Let's 3D print some dumbbells. First, take a reference image and then bring in a cylinder, and then we're going to make this cylinder about as long as the bar and as tall as the weights. Then we're going to use the offset edge loop tool to offset some edges and just put it all on the edges of the weights, just like this. Then we're going to select all those and then offset those offsets to make even more offsets. Now let's use the auto mirror plugin so we can work easier and just scale these lines, all these edge loops down to fit the size of our weights. We're just kind of looking and moving all these loops that we made until they fit. Looky there, starting to look like some weights. Now let's select all these, scale them down, select our loops, scale them down. You get the idea. And we're just going to keep doing that all the way down. And that's looking like some weights. So I'm just going to bevel these little edges out here and put it in my slicer, 3D print that thing, and that's it. Now we've got some weights. Let's make a knife with the knife tool. To make a knife, all you got to do is open a new project, bring in a reference image, create a plane, and squeeze it on down. Take your knife tool and start cutting. Cut, cut, cut. Then you can even cut out the details and the circles just like that. Pretty cool. Then you want to delete the corners. Don't forget about these two little boogers. Haha. Then you want to take that, extrude it up. You can even type in the exact value. Hey. Then you want to take these edges and just merge them at the center. Boink, boink, boink. Just like that. Now you got a sharp edge. You can offset the edge of the blade, extrude up the handle, and scale it down. Then you can take these guys, slide them on down with the extrude manifold, and delete the faces. Check it all. We got two little hairs here. Deleted. Boing. Gone. Now we got non-flat faces. Fixed it with the 3D print tool. These are too sharp. I'm going to bevel them out. And it's ready for printing. Let's go ahead and print that thing. Hey, now we have a knife with the knife tool. Let's slice up some stuff with the bisect tool. Let's get started. So first I'm going to take this gear, take it into edit mode, do my bisect tool, and then slide it from the side. But nothing happens. That's because you have to select everything first, then you can bisect. That's how you do it. And you can move it around all willy-nilly, and you can slide it. That's pretty awesome. But even cooler is you can cut a piece off or fill it in or cut off the top, flip-flop it, non-stopping bisecting. But that's pretty cool. But hey, what if we want to do more? Just select it all again and then bisect it again. Look, now we've got two pieces. And then we can pop that off, and now we've got two layers. And then we can take both layers into edit mode and bisect those two layers and bisect the bisects. Now we've got four pieces. We can pop those off into different layers, take them into edit mode, and fix it with the 3D print toolbox. And now we've got multiple parts that can be 3D printed. Let's make custom fitted mask with the polybuild tool. To get started, let's just take a plane on Suzanne, duplicate it, pop it off, and call it a mask. Now we can take our polybuild tool, turn our magnetization on, and start polybuilding. So notice you can just click and drag the edges, add a displacement to pull it off a little bit, and it'll magnetize to the surface and wrap around curvy organic surfaces like you've never seen, and just keep on going. So I'm just going to quickly wrap this around her face, maybe do a little loop-de-loo around her ear, and then if you get the points close enough, they will actually snap together because we turned our snapping on. And so there you go. And so now we've got a full mask. I'm just going to curve out the edges, add a solidify with the 2mm and flip the offset, and now we've got a mask. Flatten off the bottom with the bool tool, send it to our slicer, and print that thing. There we go. Now we've got a custom mask. Let's make a screwdriver with the spin tool. Let's get started. Bring in a reference image. Then we want to make sure it's centered up. Then create a plane, and we're going to go into edit mode and delete all the vertices. So it's really just an empty object. Then we're going to control right click all around the profile and make kind of like a silhouette, but make sure you have it right there on the center, and you want to center out the top dot and the bottom dot. Don't forget, that's very important. Then we're going to look around, turn on our spin tool, and then click and drag it around. Looky there, we're spinning the spin tool 360 to create a cool screwdriver. You can also take the north, south, east, and west point of the top and scale them in. Looky there, you got a little Phillips head, and that's a screwdriver. Bring it into your slicer, slice it up, and print that thing. Come on, that is a screwdriver in my hand. Let's make some pipes with the spin tool. You get started, let's create a cylinder and make it as long as you want, and then turn on your increment absolute grid snapping. Move your 3D cursor wherever you like it, turn on your spin tool, turn on your XYZs, and get to spinning. Looky there, we've got some pipes, but it could be a little smoother, so let's crank up the steps. There we go. Extrude it out a little bit more. as long as you want, really. Move your 3D cursor and spin it again. Looky there, 180. Increase the steps. Now it's smooth. Extrude however far you want. Move your 3D cursor. You can even move it further out and do a 90 degree. It's totally up to you. Move the 3D cursor and do it all over again. You get the idea. So now, to turn it into a pipe, you just select the two faces, delete them, and then add a solidify modifier with a thickness of 2 millimeters. And looky there, you got a pipe. Turn it on its side, hey, and throw it in your slicer with no internal infill and print that thing. And there you go. You've got some pipes. Super easy. Let's make a bolt and nut with the spin duplicates tool. And the first thing we're going to do, make sure you turn on your bolt factory, create a bolt, and then also create a nut. Make sure that the nut's a little bit bigger so it'll actually fit and work. Then we're going to put our 3D cursor right here, add a shape, maybe tone it down so it's more pyramid-esque, and then turn it on its side and scale it down to fit. That looks pretty good. Make sure it's sticking just a little bit in. Put your 3D cursor right in the middle of the head, and then spin duplicates those guys around 360 and put as many as you want. Then you can duplicate those, rotate them a little bit. That's looking pretty cool. Duplicate those, and then maybe duplicate another one and bring it on down. Maybe one more for good luck. Then we're going to take that and do the exact same thing on the nut here. So just put your 3D cursor where you want it, add a shape, and I'm going to do a sphere, but make sure it's not biting into your threads. Then you want to put your 3D cursor in the middle and spin duplicates. But we don't want this many duplicates because it's a hexagon. So let's just switch it over to 6, and that fits perfectly. We're going to shift click these together and boolean them, and then do the same thing for the top. Shift click and boolean them. Now if we move them, it's all together like one object. Now we can simply export, send it to our slicer, flip it over so it's easier to print, and then we'll print that thing. Now we've got a screw that we can screw together with little ridges on it. Pretty cool, right? Let's make a trowel right now with the smooth tool. Let's get started. With the smooth tool, you can take any object and just smooth it out just like that. But we're not going to use Suzanne, so let's just go ahead and delete her. We're going to create a cube and scale it up, bring it up to the floor and scale it down. Take the corners, pull them back, and cross divide with some loop cuts and grab that, inset it, and extrude up and rotate 45 degrees and extrude along the normal. Looky there, we've got a trowel just like that. Then we're going to take the smooth tool and smooth it out, but that looks like crap. So what we need to do is subdivide it, not too much, but just 2, and less is more actually with the smooth tool. And now we've got a smooth trowel, but the bottom is a little too steep. So let's add a cube, line it up, and then bool tool and flatten the bottom. Now it'll print really easy in your favorite slicer. We can even change and add a color right here. Pick a color. There we go. Print that thing, and you've got some multicolor prints with some crazy retractions off this PETG. Yikes! Let's learn the randomize tool. If you want to learn more, you can go to my website. Let's get started. To make some sandpaper and a monkey, just create a plane. Then we're going to take our randomize tool and randomize things, but it's only 4 dots, so we got to add more. So let's subdivide it, maybe crank it up to 100. So now we got a ton of dots to play with, and maybe we can take our randomize tool and really randomize it. Look how random that is. And there we go. Now we've got some sandpaper, but it's just flat. So let's take our non-manifold edges, extrude it down on the Z, hold 0, flatten it out. Then we can just fill it in with F. Boom. Now we got some sandpaper. Turn that off. Turn our monkey on. Now we can pop out the eyeballs because no one wants fuzzy eyeballs. Now we can randomize it, but it looks really weird. So let's crank up the subdivision, but that's not even. So what I usually do is just add a remesh, and that's going to make it really uniform and nice and even. And then we can really randomize it and crank up the randomization, and it's a little too much, so I'll just type in 0.5. Now we got a hairy monkey and some sandpaper. Bring it into our slicer, slice it up, and 3D print that thing. Hey, looky there. So now we've got a fuzzy monkey and some sandpaper just like that. Let's learn the edge slide tool. Bring in a reference image to get started, rotate it on its side so it's nice and straight. Then we're going to add a plane, maybe 20 millimeters, and then we're going to call it a hammer because it's going to be a hammer. Then we're going to loop slide, but I usually just hit GG, but there's also a tool and you can edge slide just like that. Look, it's sliding along the edge. That's pretty cool. But what I do is keep it in select mode, and then you can hit GG, and then that does the same thing, and it just slides along the edges. That's the edge slide. Now let's straighten up the hammer because it's a little crooked and start scaling and extruding until we fit this plane along the hammer. That looks pretty good. Now what we're going to do is take our edge loop slide and just start sliding the edges just like that. Look, I can click and slide. The cool thing is you can even do it from the side, and it's just going to lock to the edges. That's the beauty of the edge slide tool. But what I said before, again, you can just keep it in select mode and hit GG. Make sure to subscribe because next time we're going to be talking about his brother, the vertex slide. Let's learn the vertex slide. To get started, let's take our vertex slide. Actually, let's select all, get our extrude region, and extrude it up a little bit, then get our vertex edge slide. And now we can grab that vertex and slide that vertex all up and down. Either way you want to go, it'll just slide and lock to the edges. But what I like to do is just have my selection tool and then just hit GG, and that'll do the exact same thing, but way quicker. So if you have regular G, it just grabs it. But if you hit GG, it's going to lock it. Get the difference? I'm sure you do. Another cool thing is you can use snapping with vertex slide. So you can turn on your magnet, do vertex, and then when you hover over, it will actually magnetize to the vertex, hit A, and then hover over another one, hit A again, and then it'll give you the center point of those two vertex. Now you've got kind of like the approximation of both. Pretty nerdy, but pretty cool. If you like that, then you're going to love the next one, which is the shrink and fatten, so make sure to subscribe. Let's learn the shrink and fatten tool. So to get started with the shrink and fatten tool, first turn on your face mode, and we're just going to select the neck because we want to shrink and less fatten the neck. So make sure you still have the tool selected, and then you can just grab this little thumbtack here and push and pull it. But it kind of looks like it's scaling almost, but to show you the difference, it's actually shrinking along the normals. So if we turn on the normals here, just this face one, this third one, and we start cranking up the size, you can kind of see the normal hair sticking up. And if we deselect some of the normals, you can kind of get a better idea of what this tool is really doing. So if we click and drag this little thumbtack, it's actually going to shrink along the normals, or shrink and fatten. So, and if you like this video, make sure to subscribe, because next video we're going to talk about the push and pull. Let's learn the push-pull tool. To get started, make sure you have the push-pull turned on, and we're just going to select maybe the head of our hammer here and push and pull. And notice it's almost just kind of like swelling or inflating almost. Don't really use this often, but you can also use it with the 3D cursor. Put the 3D cursor somewhere random, and then whenever you push that little or pull that little thumbtack, it actually like sucks it into like a vortex. So notice it's going straight to the 3D cursor, and I'm not sure what you could do with that, but maybe it could spark some ideas. But let's just use it to shrink this right here. So I'm just gonna put it back to bounding box, and let's just pull it right here. So again, I would probably just scale, but that is how you can use the push-pull. And so if you like that, stay tuned and subscribe, because next we're gonna go over the shear tool. Let's learn the shear tool. So to get started, let's turn on X-ray mode like Superman, then get our selection mode, highlight some faces, and then we can take our shear tool and start shearing. So as long as we grab these little doodads, we can actually shear and zigzag our geometry. Pretty cool. Don't know really why you would want to do this, but maybe sometimes you just want to zigzag some stuff or shear some stuff. So I'm going to keep going. I don't want to grab the line, so I'm going to make sure I still have it on faces. Then I'm going to take it, turn on my shear tool again, and start to shear. And look at that, I got 2 zigzags. And let's do it one more time, because 3 is a magic number. So now we've got 3 zigzags. And if you like that, make sure to subscribe, because next time we're going to be talking about the 2-sphere. Let's learn the 2-sphere tool. To get started, let's take the tip of this hammer and spherize it. And we're going to use the 2-sphere tool. So just select all the faces, and then we'll inset it with I just to make it a little smaller. Then let's do 2-sphere, and let's spherize it just by clicking and dragging. But that doesn't look like a sphere at all. So instead, what we need to do is add more geometry. So I'm going to go to Edge, Subdivide, and let's subdivide by maybe 2. That'll give us a lot more lines and polygons to work with. But instead, I'm going to delete them. Then what we're going to do is select those edges that we just made, because now we have a lot more pieces of geometry and a lot more edges, so that the sphere tool can actually do its dang job and make it look like a sphere. So now if we do the sphere tool and click and drag, watch this, woohoo! Now it looks more like a sphere. Then we can just hit F to fill it in, and looky there, we've got a little hammerhead thing. And that is the sphere tool. And so next is the rip region. Stay tuned, kids. Let's learn the rip region tool. So to get started, we need to take some points and be able to rip them. So let's do a loop cut right here in the center. And then what we need to do is actually switch into point mode so we can rip those points. So I'm just going to select the points that I want to rip. And once you've got them highlighted, you can take that blue little, or that little circle there, and rip them. Look at there, we ripped it. And just to keep it symmetrical, let's select the other ones and just move them down a little bit. And then I'm going to put the anchor point, the 3D cursor, right there in the center. And then when we hit rotate, it's actually going to rotate around the side. Actually, look, it's not doing it. That's because we need to go up here to the top and move it to 3D cursor. Now it's going to use the 3D cursor as an anchor point. So if we hit R, now we can rotate. Let's do the same thing for the other side. So I'm just going to select those and then hit R, and that'll rotate it. Look, now we've got a hammer. But look, there's a huge hole in it. That's because we ripped it apart. So we're just going to select them all and then just hit F to fill it in. And then on the very deep inside, we got to do the same thing. So I'm just going to select these little points, hit F, and fill it on in. Now we've got a ripped region. And so if you like that, you're going to love the other tool. That is the rip edge. So stay tuned, subscribe. Let's learn the rip edge tool. If you want to take the full course, you can go over to my website to get started with the rip edge tool. And yes, we could rip the edges, but today we're going to use the points, because you can rip points too. But I'm going to take the rip edge tool, grab some points, and start ripping those points. Look at them pointing, ripping all day. And really all it's doing is make some weird geometry. So I'm going to undo that. Maybe just do like a few, just one or two, just to really make my mark on this hammer. Because, you know, I want people to know I was here. There we go. And I'm going to bring it down because it's a little too cray-cray up there. Now what we do is take our 3D print, check all, and look, we got some non-flat faces. That's because it's the Rip Edge tool's fault. So all we're going to do is go to clean up, distorted, boom, look, it's fixed. Now we can check all. That looks pretty good. Everything's zeroed out. Now we can go and export, take it over to your favorite slicer. Then I'm going to shrink it down because it's way too big. That looks pretty good. Sliced up. Send the G-code over to your printer and print that thing. Looky there, it's printing like a champ. And we've got a little toy hammer in my hand. That is just beautiful. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you want to learn every tool for 3D print design, then come on over to the website. We'll be there waiting for you, ready to teach you and learn you and, you know, just really get you up to par and ready to start 3D printing your own ideas. Yeehaw!